Well, good evening. We're back here working on Big Blue. I've been down for a couple days. I mentioned, I think, in the one of the previous segments of this video that I've been under the weather pretty hard. Um, Anybody out there know what under the weather means? I don't know. If you're like normal, does that mean you're at the weather? And like if you're feeling like really good, are you above the weather? What does any of that mean? I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, so where we left off on the last video was we're still we did all the shimming and everything, still having problems with this thing running. It's just not it's not where it needs to be. It ran better. It ran very much better, but I still think we have some issues. So, with that being said, I've torn off the valve cover on the passenger side here because it's the easiest. I don't have to take anything else off. I can just take the valve cover off. Keeping in mind on this, I've deleted all the smog and the EGR and stuff, so that makes it a little more open. If you're doing this on a EGR smog, whew, it'd be pretty hard to get into those valve covers. But anyways, I digress. And again, I apologize. I'm still a little stuffed up and still a little. I mean, I'm always raspy because I got this nice raspy voice, but even more so now. Anyways, what I'm doing is I'm double checking the my push rod lift. I forgot when I had it open before to check that push rod lift because what I'm thinking is that what I'm thinking is I wiped that cam. And I think I have at least a couple lobes that I'm having trouble with. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going along and I'm checking just the intake side because when I did all of my initial measurements for shimming the rocker arms, I had number one intake that I was measuring real big. So real big gap in between the valve stem and the rocker arm with the tappet or the lifter collapse. And I checked it multiple times. And I was coming up um, with almost 2,000s. Excuse me, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still a little under the weather. But yeah, so I'm worried I have a couple lobes on this cam that have wiped on it. I don't know why. My break-in was not perfect, but it was pretty good. Issue at hand. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring right now. I've got it set up where I'm measuring push rod length and or push rod travel rather. I have gone through. I've made sure all the push rods are straight, all the rocker arms are good. I did all that when I did the bleed down and the tappet travel distance testing where I added the shims, and I did have to add some shims to some of them, but I think I discussed that before. So, anyways, that's what I'm doing here, and I'll kind of show you how I'm doing that. Okay, I got you set up here. Hopefully you can see everything I'm doing, but right now that's set up on the intake on number 4. And it's just starting to come up on the lobe. So, don't want to really touch too much there. And I'm cranking this over by hand, obviously. So there's one revolution. There's 2. So I'm going to read that at about 2. Why is it sinking? Why is it moving like that? Oh, I wonder if my lifter's collapsing. That's probably what it is. So I'm going to read that at about 219. That's probably what it is. That lifter's collapsing. Well, so like you saw there, I think what I was doing is while that valve is under spring tension, I was losing a little bit of my uh, the lift in my lifter. It's starting to compress down. So meaning it was losing oil out of it. So, but I think when it was at its peak there, I was at about 219. Now, I don't know. There's probably a better way to do this. I don't know if I should be doing it off of using, the trigger, the button start or something. So I'm building pressure while I'm doing it, but I think I should be able to get close enough to know if there's a huge deviation because that's actually what I'm finding. And I'm going to go through and do all the exhaust and see how they come up. But I've got one that's really, really off. So, and I've double checked it. I've already double checked it, but I'm going to check it for a third time just to make sure. And I might run it over a couple of revolutions just to make sure I'm getting oil up through the push rod on that cylinder to make sure that lifter is completely full. So, but it's looking more and more like I really do have a wiped cam on at least one lobe, and that could be the basis for my problem. Because one thing I haven't let you guys know yet is that I threw a vacuum meter on this, or a vacuum gauge on it again to see where my vacuum was. And whereas with adjusting the rockers with the shims, it did improve. I was getting more vacuum. It still wasn't consistent. It was bouncing around all over the place. It was bouncing between about 13 and 15. Sometimes they would kind of bounce up to in the 16 inches of mercury range, but it needs to be a lot steadier than that. In fact, but if I've got a wonky camshaft or lifters, it could be a lifter too. I don't know which one. Either way, they both got to be replaced. But um, even if I had a wonky lobe on the cam or a wonky lifter, that would cause that pulsation in the vacuum for sure. Because you've got that one cylinder that's not drawing like the other ones, and if that one's not drawing as much, that's where you're gonna. Let's see, would this make sense? Would that be you'd be drawing less vacuum on that one particular cylinder? So that cylinder, you would be drawing less vacuum, so that would cause it to bounce. Does that make sense? It kind of makes sense in my brain, but I'm going to go through and I'm going to check the rest of these on the passenger side and then make the decision on whether or not I'm going to pull the driver's side and check all those. I probably will just for peace of mind, because honestly, if I'm changing this cam, I'm going to be pulling this motor because I got other things, other little nuisance things that could be fixed if the motor got pulled. I don't want to pull the motor, just to be clear. But if I have to do it, I have to do it. So, and if I'm doing surgery on this to the point where I'm removing the camshaft, which means I'm taking the water pump off, the radiator out, the timing cover off, the intake manifold, pulling the lifters and rocker arms and stuff off of it and stuff like that, I might as well pull the motor out, because all the things I need to do to pull the motor, I have to do to change the cam. And it's just going to be easier. Plus, I need to, and I won't go into it right now. We'll make the decision on whether or not I'm going to pull this or not. But there's other things that need to be looked at on this engine, and I'll go into more detail on that in a little bit here. So, like I said, I'm going to check all that stuff now. I'll be right back. Well, good morning. That's a good cup of Joe. I'm at, but I'm convinced, because we're 120 thousandths or 110 thousandths out on the number one intake. So number one intake is opening 110 thousandths less than the highest. So it's a 131 thousandths versus 241 thousandths on that bank, that passenger side bank. I'm pretty sure that's not right. So what is my plan moving forward? I think there's an issue with my cam. I did something wrong when I broke it in. Maybe I had defective parts. I can't answer that question. And I can't measure the cam with it in the motor. I've measured it the best way I know how. And maybe, like I said, maybe there's some other methods that a person could use to do that better. But if there is, I'm not sure what they are. So what I'm going to do at this stage, at this point right now, I'm convinced that there is an issue with the cam. There's an issue with somewhere in the valving in there. It could be a wiped cam. It could be a wiped lifter. I mean, there's something. The push rods are fine. The rockers are fine. The valves are fine. Everything. I've got good compression. We proved that now that I've shimmed everything. But there's something that the only thing that this keeps pointing to is something in the cam or the lifters. And those are all components I can't get to. I can't reach into the motor and examine those or measure them or so on and so forth. So the only way we're going to be able to really double check on those is by removing the lifters in the cam. In order to remove the lifters in the cam, the intake needs to come off, the front cover needs to come off. You're going to have to pull the distributor. There's going to be all kinds of things that you're going to have to do. So in order to do that, I think it's going to be easier just for me to pull that engine out of the truck. I know it sounds extreme, but I've got to do all the steps anyways. I'm really only adding one extra step, which is removing the engine. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I am going to put it all back together, and I am going to run it again because I want to double check all the numbers. Because I'd really hate to pull this whole thing out and put all this time, effort, and energy into it and find out that I'm wrong. So we're going to put it back together. I'm going to run it, and we're going to see where we wind up. All right, well, here we go. This is cold start. See, I don't like how much trouble it has starting like that. I mean, right now it's running better than it ever has. But I don't know if you can hear that. Every now and then there's a knock. I'm going to get my stethoscope so I can listen for that knock. Doctor, 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 doctor. They call me the engine doctor. No, don't. I am not a doc. I am not a doctor of engines. I can tell you that right now. But yeah, right now it's running great. So here's vacuum. See, it's jumping all over. Let me see if I can pull this, just to see if I can get shocked. Come on. I'm not seeing any. There is like no change. There is no change. So I'm gonna, right now, it's sparking to number 1. Now watch that when I pull. I'm pulling the spark plug boot off the distributor for number 1. There, it's off. There is no change. There, it's back on. There is no change. Number 1 cylinder is not doing anything. Well, come off of there. Now see, that one changed. Smooths out. Now that one's doing something. Number 2 is doing something. See, where's number 3 here? Right there. Boy, those are on there for crying out loud. Yep, that's definitely doing something. Number 3 is working pretty hard. There's number 4. Number 4 is working. Let's see, number 5. This number 5. Oh my goodness. Number 5 is not doing anything. Where's number 6? This should be 6. Number 6 is not doing anything, or very little. Number 7. I think number 7's working okay. And then number 8. Oh yeah, number 8's doing stuff. So we had number 1's not doing anything. Number 6, number 5. Well, God dang it! I'll have to go back through and look at the video because I pulled all those plugs off of the distributor and somehow it didn't get shot. So that's pretty good. But yeah, look at how poorly that's running now. I think this thing's only running on about 4 cylinders. Let's see where we're at for temps. So I shut it down. I don't know. I didn't put the fan back on this, so it wasn't running hot, but it was getting close to 200. And I've got I think it's a 192 degree thermostat in it. So yeah, we got an issue. I think it's that cam. But so as it looks right now, I'm probably looking at pulling this motor. I'm not like super excited about it, but it is something to do to continue to move forward on this project because I got to figure this out. I know this was a lot of diagnostic and a lot of talking and stuff like that, but hopefully this might help somebody else that's in the same situation. Because quite frankly, there's not a lot of information on these big blocks that I could find on YouTube or social media and stuff like that dealing with these kinds of problems. Because most of them are still stock running. You know, there's not a lot of people that have torn them down and rebuilt them and stuff like that. And so at this point in time, I think this cam is either a junk cam or I wiped it or something. So we're going to pull the motor and we're going to find out. And I still got the stock cam. I might buy some new lifters and put that stock cam back in it. I don't know. That's just my first and immediate thought because it was running fine on that cam. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So appreciate you guys watching along on this. And I'll catch you on the next one. The next one's probably going to be me tearing this front end apart and pulling this engine out. So that'll be fun. I'm kind of excited to see what we find. I hope we find something. I hope I don't tear it apart and go, well, that was a waste of time. But yeah, so that's where we're at. So again, appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you on the next one.